Hey Kevin, so I had a little bit of time, and what did I do? I was kind of bumping my head against the wall, like, what the heck is going on here? And then what I figured out is I printed out the counter um, when it was less than two, and this never happened, right? So counter was always more than two, I guess is what was, or equal to two or greater than two. I don't know what was going. So then I put an else in there, and I printed out the counter, and then the counter, like you'll see here, I'll run it. I'll create my password, and I got this capital, and then it is going to say 14 times, right? For counter of 14. So what does that mean? The counter is being incremented, and there's 14 letters here, so it's being incremented for every letter. Okay, that's in the password. And so then I was just like, what the heck is going on there? And then I put like this system print line in each of these, just trying to see like which one was the one that was erroring out. And what I figured out after kind of kicking it around for a little bit is that you have this set up incorrectly, right? Because password is the entire password, right? So let's say here like password is equal to this string. Whoa. That's equal to this string here with a 1 in it, capital, and then double quotes. Okay. So let's say I entered this in, and then the S is going to happen, and it's going to say, does password contain, I'm sorry, what you're saying here is, does password contain the 1, right? And this password does contain the 1, right? This is true. So then it increments counter. And then it checks all these other ones. All these other ones are false, right? Because I don't have any of those other digits in there. And it gets to the bottom of the for loop, and it comes back in. And the next iteration, this is true again. Dude, password does contain the number 1. And why? Like, one of these cases is always going to be true if the password is legit, because the password is going to have at least 1 digit in it. And so every iteration of this for loop counter is being incremented. So then you're setting this up wrong, man. The way that this should be set up is... I don't know. Maybe we could say like this. And then this guy could be a string number. And then here we could say numbers contains the char at of the password dot char at. And then we are going to go through each letter of this password, because char at will be 0, the first iteration, which would be the first letter of the password. And we're checking if it contains a number, right? I mean, if it is a number. And then we're going to iterate back, and then I is going to be equal to 1. And then we're checking the second letter of the password to see if it is a number, because this will be true if this is in this, and this contains all the different digits in our number system. So this is basically saying if the second the second character of the password is a number, then increment, then the third letter of the password, then the fourth letter, and the fifth letter, and sixth letter, and so on. So this is like the correct way, or one of the correct ways you can get this going. And so one error, if I go ahead and compile it, is that incompatible types. And what does that mean? Well, contains is a string method, and if you look up the documentation, it requires a string on this side, and it requires a string as a argument. So this char at returns a character, so that's why we get the error. And so what we can do is we can do character.toString, and then drop that character in as the argument. So it's going to turn that from a character into a string, and then contains is able to receive it, and then this will be a valid expression. And then so you're gonna do that for all of these guys. And because only one of these is possibly going to be true, the best way to set this up is else if, just so that the computer doesn't need to make any calculations that it doesn't need to make. Because if you have them all as ifs, then it's going to check if that's true, and if it is true, it's going to do this, right? So that means if this is true, then you don't want to do any of the other ones, because you don't want to waste the computer's time. But the way that you had it set up with if, it's even if this is true, it's still going to check this guy to see if it's true. So it's like wasted calculations. So that's just kind of a big no-no. You want to make it as efficient as possible. So the way to make it as efficient as possible is to have it be else if. Because then if it's else if and the first one is true, then it's going to skip to the bottom of the block and it's not going to make any of these comparisons. It's not going to make any of these calculations, right? It's not going to evaluate any of these other expressions. So we're going to change all these guys to else if. And then, and then we don't want to do that. And then we don't want to do that. And yes, we want to return false if it's less than 2, I believe. And then this has upper, has lower is also not constructed correctly. I'm not sure if this is something they're just working on or what, but what you have here is you're saying if the password equals the password that's lowercase. So what this is going to do is it's going to make this password all lowercase. And then you're checking if the original password is equal to the password in all lowercase, right? So you're basically checking is the password all lowercase. And you're saying it has a upper. So then, yeah, I'm not. Okay, so then this is going to be equal to false if the password has an uppercase, which will make this guy equal to true. And then this is going to equal to. This is going to equal to. We're comparing. If this password, so this expression here is checking to see if the password is all lowercase. But that's not the same as the password having an uppercase. So if this was my password, it would be checking if that is equal to that, right? And they are equal, so then it would be false, and has upper is equal to false, so that's good. But then if I do that, then password equals to lower, this is false, and then has upper is equal to true. Yeah, I think that's gonna work actually. And then has lower, is that gonna work? We have password is equal to has lower. Okay, so then this is going to be equal. So this is gonna be true, and then has lower is false. But if this is a lowercase a, then this is not going to be true, and it has a lowercase. Okay, no, actually this is gonna work. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're good. It's just not the way that my mind thinks. So yeah, unique algorithm there. And then if it has an upper, if it doesn't have an upper, or it doesn't have a lower, return false. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, man. I think the requirement was that there has to be at least one uppercase letter, right? So if that's the case, then we would want to check that it has an uppercase. Yeah, so you want to say like if it doesn't have an uppercase or it doesn't have a lowercase. Ooh, I don't know if that's true, man. I don't know if we should be checking that. Hold on one second. Let's double check here. The password, at least one lowercase and one uppercase. Oh, okay, you're right, actually. Ooh, so scratch everything for the past 2 or 3 minutes while I was figuring out what your code was doing. Other than that, yeah, this looks all good. And then, yeah, you want to make those changes here. That was the error. Bye.